Are you looking for a super fun Shadow Isles deck that can pretty much adjust to any situation? No? Well, it doesn't matter, because Indoor Spiders is a super fun deck regardless about what you think, and if you're asking yourself, what is Indoor Spiders? Well, don't worry, in this video I'll explain to you everything you need to know about this deck, coming right up. Hey guys, it's Brother here, and welcome back to another episode of LoR Explained. If you are new to the show, LoR Explained is just me giving you tips and guides about all things Legends of Runeterra. On this channel, I'll be doing a lot of deck techs, as well as some general gameplay and guides, so before we get started, just a quick reminder that if you enjoy this deck tech and want to see more, consider subscribing so that you get updates every time I post a video. Oh, and of course, if you want to check out the deck for yourself, I provide the deck list and code in the description below. Okay, so today we'll be talking about Indoor Spiders, a deck I recently picked up and I've had a lot of success with. And the deck has been super fun to play, not just because I'm winning, even though that's nice, but because the deck is just super flexible and does a lot of things. The deck draws cards, casts big creatures, creates wide boards, gains us lifelike, whatever you can think of, this deck probably has. But to start us off, let's talk about why this deck is called Indoor Spiders. So the goal of our deck is to make favorable trades in the early game until we can safely slam down a big ol' They Who Endure. They Who Endure is a 6 mana 1/1 Overwhelm unit that gets a +1/+1 stat bonus for each ally that has died this game. And at first, you might not think that that's a crazy ability, but in our deck, we have a buttload of creatures that are gonna die in the name of They Who Endure. We have several cards like Elise and Brood Awakening that help us generate a bunch of 1/1 spiders, and also a lot of kill effects like Glimpse and Beyond and Blighted Caretaker to help build up that death count for They Who Endure. We'll talk about each individual card in this deck a little more in depth later on in this video, but in general, in this deck, we're able to consistently slam down They Who Endure as a 10/10, as a 12/12, or even a 20/20 unit if the game goes long enough. And since They Who Endure has the keyword Overwhelm, it does a pretty good job of closing out the game itself. So unless you're playing against a Nautilus Deep deck, since they have really big creatures, most decks in the format won't have the power to effectively block They Who Endure. But if that wasn't enough, our deck also includes 2 copies of Atrocity just in case things go wrong. Atrocity is a 6 mana spell in our deck that says kill an ally to deal its power to anything. So what this means is that even if our opponent tries to Vengeance or Detain our They Who Endure, we can just respond by casting Atrocity, damaging our opponent's health for whatever power They Who Endure was at. And since it's very possible that our They Who Endure is going to be huge, like a 15/15 or 20/20 unit, this will pretty much kill our opponent on the spot. So now that we know the overall goal of our deck, let's talk about our units, starting off with Hapless Aristocrat, Warden's Prey, and Avacyn Sentry. Since our units are going to be dying to help build up They Who Endure, we should probably include units that provide us a little bit of value when they die. And these 3 units all do a great job of providing us that value. Hapless Aristocrat creates a Spiderling when it dies, and this is great for They Who Endure because it creates another creature to die in its name. Plus, spiders are fairly relevant in this deck since we have 3 copies of Elise, which we'll touch on in a bit. Warden's Prey gets us a random Last Breath follower that costs 3 or less, which is nice, and finally, Avacyn Sentry just draws us a card when it dies. This deck doesn't play very fast, so most of the time you want to be using these early creatures to trade with our opponent's board until we can get to the late game. Next up, let's talk about Elise and Killa. These 2 champions do one important thing for us, which is they both create extra creatures to help make They Who Endure bigger. Elise constantly summons spiders on the board when she attacks, and once Killa levels up, she revives the strongest ally that died during this game. They each also have some individual benefits as well. For example, when Elise flips over, she can help us make more efficient trades through giving herself and other spiders challenger. We have a bunch of ways to summon spiders in our deck, so it's not going to be hard for us to level Elise up per se. And in terms of Killa, she's just really good at grinding down our opponent when she's leveled up. She brings back the strongest ally, so she's able to bring back our They Who Endure just in case it died somehow. Just bringing back our weaker creatures, like Avacyn Sentry, is fine too, since we'll benefit from their Last Breath trigger. Moving on are some great mid-game units. Blighted Caretaker kills an ally and makes 2 saplings. There's a lot of benefit to this effect. The obvious benefit is that saplings help us kill our opponent's creatures. The second benefit is that Blighted Caretaker combos perfectly with the Killa on the board. Let's do some quick maths. Blighted Caretaker kills 1 ally and creates 2 saplings that will eventually die by the end of the round because of Ephemeral. 1 + 2 = 3, so with 3 allies dying at 1 turn, we have the perfect amount of death that Killa needs to see happen. Weirdo. And finally, since Blighted Caretaker creates 3 deaths, he essentially boosts They Who Endure by +3/+3. Wraithcaller, on the other hand, is just a nice beater that gives us an extra creature. Allegiance requires us to have a Shadow Isles card on the top of our deck, but since 35 out of the 40 cards in our deck are actually Shadow Isle cards, I don't think we'll have a problem reaching that requirement. Finally, let's talk about the last two units in our deck. Neverglade Collector acts as another win condition in our deck. This card drains our opponent for 1 health every single time one of our units die, and as you already know, a lot of our units die. So with Neverglade Collector on the board, we're able to slowly whittle down our opponent while staying alive ourselves. Even if Neverglade Collector doesn't kill our opponent, he at least buys enough time for us to find a They Who Endure Atrocity combo. Last but not least, we have a single copy of a spicy card called Rasa the Sunderer. Rasa is a nice top end card that kills our opponent's 2 weakest creatures. Not many players are playing around Rasa the Sunderer, so there are going to be times where we cast Rasa and just snipe 2 of their most important units. Alright, so now that we have a good idea of what our units are trying to do, let's talk about the spells in our deck. The first of which is Glimpse Beyond, which kills one of our creatures to draw 2 cards. This is great for finding our finishers, triggering Neverglade Collector, fulfilling Kallista's level up requirements, etc. This card is pretty much just good at synergizing with the theme of the deck while drawing us cards. We also have Vile Feast in this deck, which we included to pick off our opponent's 1 health creatures, but just like Glimpse Beyond, we can also use Vile Feast to target one of our own creatures to trigger our Neverglade Collector and Kallista. And finally, for our more expensive spells, we have Withering Wail, Brood Awakening, and Vengeance. Withering Wail, as we already know, is great against aggro decks. Brood Awakening just gives us an instant board of chump blockers or attackers, depending on the matchup. And finally, Vengeance just kills off whatever threat we need dead. So all in all, Indoor Spiders is a super flexible deck that has the tools to win any matchup. For example, against aggro, we have a lot of life gain effects and board presence to stop the pressure. And against mid-range decks, they don't have a lot of tools to deal with our They Who Endure Atrocity combo, so we can just keep chump blocking and drawing cards until we get to our payoffs. And finally, against control decks, we can just take an aggressive approach, mulliganing for our 1-drops and champions. Anyways, that about wraps it up for today's episode of LoR Explained. If y'all liked the video, please make sure to leave a like, as it lets me know that you're enjoying the content. And of course, if you want to see more Legends of Runeterra Explained, click on that subscribe button and tap that bell icon to get alerts every single time I post a video. Till next time, peace.